Welcome to the complete online dressage course by How to Dressage. Now we have over 65 presentations in this course, and we're going to break down dressage theory, and we're going to teach you step by step how to ride different dressage movements. But to kick things off, we thought we would start by telling you more about dressage, and why we are quite literally going to be telling you to go around in circles. In essence, what we want to do is we want to explain what is the point to all of this. So in this presentation, we're going to start by first covering the definition of dressage. We're also going to look at where did dressage come from, and we're also going to look at the FEI's objective for this sport. And then finally, we're going to give you 2 reasons why every horse and rider should practice dressage. So let's first start with the definition. Now, if you type that into Google, it will come up with the art of riding and training a horse in a manner that develops obedience, flexibility, and balance. Now, if we take that one step further, in French, dressage means training. It's derived from the French verb dresser, meaning, when you put it in the context of animals, to train. So in essence, all you are doing when you're riding dressage is training your horse. So where did this sport come from? Well, the original aim was to train horses for war. The horses that we used to use in combat had to be manoeuvrable. They also had to be agile, and they had to be able to fight alongside their riders. And they also had to be intimidating. So they used these extravagant movements such as airs above the ground. And they also needed to be obedient, because after all, this was a matter of life and death. And they also had to be strong enough to remain sound and also to have a long working life. Now obviously in this day and age, we don't use horses for war. So then, what is the aim of modern dressage? Well, dressage is not merely about teaching your horse to perform tricks, nor is its main purpose to win rosettes or to compete. But here's what the FEI has to say about it. Now, the FEI is the international governing body for equestrian sport. And they say that the objective of dressage is the harmonious development of the physique and ability of the horse. So as a result, it makes the horse calm, supple, loose and flexible, but also confident, attentive, keen, thus achieving perfect understanding with his rider. Now, as you'll notice, nowhere in that objective does it say that the point of dressage is to make the horse look pretty, or to make the horse be able to go sideways, or to teach him to jog on the spot. The whole objective of dressage is about creating a working partnership. So regardless of if you want to go show jumping, eventing, team chasing, western, happy hacking, etc., dressage training is paramount as your foundation. Now, to take that one step further, we're now going to look at 2 reasons for dressage. So why every horse and rider should practice this sport, whether they intend to compete in it or not. So the first reason, and probably the most important reason, is that we want to rebalance the horse under the foreign weight of the rider and equipment. Now, upon reading that, most people then ask, well, what is wrong with my horse's natural balance? Why do I need to rebalance him? Well, the answer is that there's actually nothing wrong with your horse's balance until you sit on his back. So from the first moment we place a saddle on a horse and we sit in the saddle, we destroy the natural balance that makes the horse so agile. And it then becomes our responsibility to help the horse to adjust his perceptions and his muscular controls so that he can then move, work and perform even with the added burden of us and all the tack on his back. And we want him to be able to do it without compromising himself. And this is the utmost priority, and it's the reason why we ask our horses to work over the back and into a contact and on the bit, etc. Because only in such a functional posture can the horse carry the weight of the rider without physical damage. So let's take a look at this in action. So when you first sit on a novice horse, he will be working downhill. And this will be because he will carry the weight of the rider on his forehand and on his shoulders, with his hind legs trailing out behind him. So he will always look like he is travelling downhill. And this is basically because of the way the horse is built. So he's got this heavy head and this long neck which protrudes out of this table-like body. Now, because he carries the weight of the rider on his forehand, this means that he puts a lot of strain on his delicate front limbs. And remember that most lameness in horses happens in the horse's front legs. And this is because if this is where the horse is carrying the weight, then when the horse is trotting, cantering, jumping, turning, doing upward transitions and downward transitions, this can cause a lot of stress, a lot of strain and a lot of concussion on those delicate front legs. And also horses that work in a hollow frame, so one that doesn't learn how to lift his back and use his stomach muscles, will put a lot of stress on their spine. So you can see it's our responsibility to help him to adjust to carry our weight properly, because otherwise, if the horse does not learn how to carry his rider in a physically functional manner, then it becomes very damaging to the horse's body, particularly on those front legs and on his back. So our goal as riders is that we want to bring the horse up off the forehand and to have him working uphill instead. And we do this by engaging the horse's hind quarters. And he does this with a lifted and rounded back, which brings him up off the forehand. And this enables the horse to carry more of the weight on his powerful hind legs as opposed to on those delicate front legs. Now, a balanced horse that works in this uphill manner will be laterally supple and also straighter. And he will not only get better marks in a dressage test, but he will also stay sound for much longer than a horse that habitually works with all the weight on his forehand. Now, in this good balance, you can protect the horse's joints from stresses and strains, as well as guard against the concussion injuries that can result from habitually landing in a heap during the downward transitions. And this functional posture also frees the horse's shoulders. So therefore it makes the horse easier to turn, and it also makes him more comfortable and more enjoyable to ride. So overall it's a win-win. When done correctly, it's better for the horse and for the rider. Now, there is a bit of a note with this, and that is that in order to achieve this functional posture, it isn't a push-button thing. Instead, it's a gradual process, and this is basically what underpins all your dressage training. So we're not really going to teach the horse to work in an uphill way. Instead, we're helping the horse to achieve this and find a new balance. And he does this by engaging his hind legs under his body and shifting the weight from his shoulders onto his more powerful hind legs. And remember that strength plus balance equals a sound horse. And this is the whole point of dressage training. We're helping the horse to improve his strength and to improve his balance. So again, engaging his hindquarters, taking more weight onto his hind legs, improving the strength of his back and his abdominal muscles. And we're doing that so he can have a long working life. Okay, so that about sums up reason number 1. Now let's move on to reason number 2 for dressage, and this is to produce a harmonious partnership between horse and rider built on trust. So we want to train our horses with compassion and with understanding of their needs and abilities, because an animal can only truly learn to be relaxed and be beautiful if his education is without fear. Now, in order to create this harmonious partnership, we need to develop a two-way communication system that is clear to both horse and rider. And a correct communication system will benefit any horse, regardless of the type and regardless of the discipline that you choose to do. Now, with this clear communication system, each aid and each movement that you teach your horse is done in a systematic order, so one builds upon the next. And this allows us to move from the functional steps in the basic dressage movements right the way through to the more advanced movements. And we do it in a way that is smooth, that is easy, and that is happy for the horse. Now also, because you develop this language together, there's less likely of miscommunication between the two of you. So there's less second guessing and there's less confusion, which can lead to tension and tightness. And this also means that both you and your horse get more confidence and more enjoyment when you are working together. Now, as we mentioned in reason number 1 for dressage, we said that we want to train the horse to go from working downhill, and we want to rebalance him to work more uphill and to carry the weight of the rider and the equipment on his hindquarters as opposed to on his shoulders. But we want to be able to do that process without resistance. And for this to happen, the horse must find the journey easy and comfortable. So we don't want to force the horse. Therefore, we need to develop the horse, not just physically, but also mentally. And this is where that communication system comes into place. And this is why we always talk about a harmonious partnership. And this leads us into what is commonly known as the happy athlete. And the happy athlete is an effort to encourage achieving submission that is from the horse wanting to work with us, rather than a dominant submission, which is produced by bullying, by force, or by scaring the horse into working. Now, achieving these goals requires systematic training of the horse's body and mind to enhance his physical and mental flexibility and responses. And therefore, we need to use training methods that encourage and reward the horse and that guide him to offer his cooperation willingly, and ultimately create that harmony between horse and rider. And this should be the goal of every equestrian, regardless of what discipline you want to compete in. Because no matter what we do with our horses, we want to have a willing partner. We don't want to have a subservient slave. Now, the FEI states that submission does not mean subordination, but an obedience revealing its presence in the horse by its constant attention, willingness, and confidence, as well as by the harmony, lightness, and ease displayed in the execution of the different movements. And again, this is why we need that clear communication system, because we cannot develop harmony with our horses if we cannot communicate with him in a clear, relaxed manner that he understands. And a harmonious partnership means that both the horse and rider enjoy the ridden work. And this is what the classical principles of dressage teach. And again, it's why all horses and riders can benefit from this sport. Now, once you have achieved reason 1 for dressage, which was to rebalance the horse, and once you've achieved reason 2 for dressage, which is to create that harmonious partnership and that communication system, then once you've got both of those in place to a sufficient level, then this is when you get the dancing horses. And the biggest compliment that you can receive as a rider is that you just sit there and you don't do anything and that dressage looks easy. Because this is when your riding and your partnership with your horse has transcended into an art form. And it's when your performance hides years of practice and training and hides every slight bit of communication that you have with your horse. Now, yes, dressage is a very technical sport. To some degree, it could possibly be called a science. But through correct training, the horse and the rider can become one, and they can move in a harmonious and beautiful way together that they both enjoy and that they both benefit from. So that sums up our 2 reasons for dressage. But now we've just got for you a bonus slide, and that is we're going to give you some tips on how to enjoy dressage. Because although we really enjoy dressage, we know it can be a little bit stressful at times, especially to new riders who are frustrated and trying to figure everything out. So here are 3 tips to help you out. So the first tip is that remember that no horse is perfect. Even purpose-bred dressage horses are not perfect. But there's no reason why you can't make the best out of what you have, because remember that dressage is essential training for any discipline and for any horse. Now, secondly, remember that dressage helps you to get the most out of your horse. So it helps to make your horse safer, it helps him to move in a more functional manner that promotes longevity, and it also helps to make riding more pleasurable for both you and the horse. And then the last tip is to remember to just lighten up and enjoy the journey. A lot of people are far too hard on their horses and on themselves, which is probably why this sport got the nickname of stressage. So yes, there will be moments of frustration, but as with anything that is worthwhile, it's often not easy. So just try to lighten up and face it as a positive challenge for improving both yourself and your horse. So, to summarise this presentation, dressage competitions developed out of the need for cavalry horses to be obedient, to be strong enough to have a long working life, and also agile enough to perform in battle. But in these days, we don't use horses for war. So modern dressage is used to rebalance the horse, to promote soundness and longevity, and also to produce a harmonious partnership and a happy athlete through an effective communication system. And lastly, remember that dressage is beneficial for all horses, and every horse can get something out of this sport, whether you choose to compete in it or whether you just want to ride at home. Now this leads me into one final quote that I want to leave you with, which is that dressage is for the horse. The horse is not for dressage. So remember that the horse came first, and it's not just for those who want to compete at the highest levels. Dressage is for every horse and every rider, regardless of the type of horse you have or the discipline that you eventually want to take part in. Now, of course, not every horse that is bred and that is walking out there is going to be a world-class athlete. But if we strive to develop them physically and mentally using the core principles of classical dressage, then we have the best hope of having a willing and a happy partnership with a horse that will stay sound and healthy over a long ridden career. And that is the point of dressage. And it's exactly what we're going to be teaching you throughout this course. So I hope that you will join us on it. But to wrap things up, this presentation was created by How To Dressage. And if you do want to continue with this course, then please just visit course.howtodressage.com. Thank you very much for watching.